Sometimes the hardest part isn't fixing your dog, it's realizing you've been looking past what's right in front of you. Welcome to The Dog Who Asked for More, a podcast for dog parents navigating the messy, complicated parts of life with dogs that no one really prepares you for. Each week, you'll hear honest, grounded conversations that help you better understand your dog, feel more confident in your choices, and strengthen the relationship you're building together. If you've ever felt like you're trying to do everything right for your dog, reading labels, adding supplements, following advice, and still wondering if you're missing something, you are not alone in that. That pressure to get it right, to make the best decision, and to fix what's going on, a lot of this shows up when we start relying more on what we've been told than what we're actually seeing. I'm Em, a dog mom, retired vet tech turned dog trainer, and canine nutritionist who works with overwhelmed dog parents who love their dogs deeply but feel stuck, burned out, or unsure what their dog actually needs. Because sometimes what gets lost is how simple some of this actually is. Today's conversation looks at what's happening when you start paying attention again to the dog in front of you instead of just the systems around them. In your 50 years of veterinary medicine, can you tell me some things that you've noticed shift in the health culture of pets?
Yes, because when I was in the Netherlands in Utrecht in college, you had to have special permission not to take any large animal courses so that you would only do small animals. Well, now it's just about the opposite, where the whole education is about dogs and cats, not many others. And the last I heard from a traveling salesman that 1 in 50 new graduates in Michigan will look at a large animal, which is surprising because they are animals and they need people to help them.
Yeah, they do.
And that's the problem. So yes, there's a big shift from the large animal to the small animal. It probably has a lot to do with money because people will spend more money on their pets than on their animals that make a living for them. The other day, there was a guy that we had to go for a calving, and the head was back in the calf, and it was a beef cow, old beef cow, and we had to do a C-section in order to get the calf out because it was so big, and that would cost too much. So he tried to have the cow butchered, and the guy would charge him $800 to butcher that cow. So the cow got shot because when you have animals that make a living or that help you make a living, it costs too much to fix them.
Yeah.
You don't. Case in point, through the show with all many people, we had a guy from Florida came up that had a pig farm, and he used to shoot all the little piglets with a rectal prolapse because it costs too much to have it fixed. Now, that's the difference between pets and large animals. If it costs too much for what the animal is worth, you don't do it. Look at the insurance. If you have an accident and it costs too much to fix your car, they say, get the next one. So it's the same thing. So he saw me making these little tubes with a groove in the middle and a rubber band around everything. He says, well, I can do that myself. So now he does it too, the ones that have rectal prolapse, and he saves every single one.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So in that way, I help him save these animals.
Which is incredible. I worked on farms a little bit when I lived down in Texas, and so I have pulled calves, and it is quite an experience, but I've
No,
never
it's
seen a
fun.
C-section on a calf.
To be honest with you, when I was in college, before I graduated, we were hands-on. We had done a C-section and sewed up everything before we graduated. It was a good education.
Yeah, I bet it was.
And we haven't done many C-sections in cows here. We can't do it in horses, not in the field. But we have done, I don't know, a fair number. Yes, you just do it. But you need a facility. This last facility was outside in the mud when it was cold. And like I said, he was in his tension. We couldn't do it.
Yeah. It's crazy. I mean, what you do is pretty intense.
In a way it is, but that is veterinary medicine,
Mm.
large animal especially. Just last night I was here for dinner and I got a call from one of my Amish clients who has a horse trying to have a foal and the head was down. And he had called my colleagues and she came out. And this morning there was a picture on the phone on the work shed that we have where she had pulled a live foal out of that horse. She has been good. She has already pulled twice live twins out of cows.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Oh my goodness.
It's springtime, so we have that.
Yeah.
And she loves it.
It's fun.
That's
Honestly, it is fun. I was a vet tech for about 10 years, and I love veterinary medicine. I stopped working because I had brain surgery and I'm not able to physically handle the animals the
oh,
same way anymore. But I would have been a veterinarian if I could have been. I love veterinary medicine and I think it's
yes.
just such a cool
It it
field.
it is so nice to help people get their pets healthy.
Yes.
Right now, we are, like I said, we used to be 80% dairy when we started 45 years ago. Now we're 60% small animal. And the next thing, well, more horses than cows. The dairy farmers that we had in the practice all disappeared because it does not pay to milk cows unless it is organic. And with organic, we can't do anything. I tell them, we can't even spit on the cow rather to make it better, but it's not that way. But yes, we can do anything with them. So, yes, the dairy farmers that still have to farm went to beef cows. And the biggest problem is that dairy farmers would watch the cows very closely. They see them twice a day. Beef farmers, everybody's up, everybody's eating. Okay, this early spring and winter yet, and I had to go about 40 some miles away. There was a 1,500-pound heifer, beef heifer, that was trying to have a calf, and it was hard.
Was that the hardest one you've ever had, do you think?
No,
No?
but I got it out. You saved the cow, and that's the whole secret. Yes.
What do you think your hardest one was?
Hard to say. In the show, there was one where we were in the armies, and there was a cow trying to have a calf. The calf was completely upside down, and it was like 100 degrees. And honestly, I had the sweat in my boots. And that's where the saying came that, you can take a breather, but you can't give up. And that was not a hard calving, but it was hard because of the circumstances. I don't know how many calves I've pulled, how many horses or foals I've pulled. The main thing is just do your job and do the best you can.
So, what made you decide as a veterinarian to move into nutrition? Because I'm a certified professional canine nutritionist
Okay.
and I love vets that like
That
nutrition.
that is because many problems are caused by what we eat. Humans, the same. Well, one of the people that was working with the show, he says, look at all these Amish kids. They eat the fruits and vegetables they grow and they don't get sick or anything. And, yes, so it's the same thing. If we can improve what we eat to prevent problems, why not?
Yeah. So, tell me how you decided, like your process for creating your food.
Well, I looked at the ingredients
Hmm.
and then CSD is making it.
Yes.
And when I saw that it was good, I said, yes, we will sponsor, we will help you sell. And then, now they came out because they looked at prescription diets. And prescription diets doesn't have any medicine in it.
Thank you for saying that. I love that you said that.
Yes, it is just that they make a claim that it helps these animals, and that's why the FDA said it had to be prescription. So when you look at the ingredients, we can make the same thing for half price. So this is why we call it clinical nutrition. And like I said, it's going to be available at Walmart very quickly. And now the people can see that, yes, this is healthy food for their animals. Because yes, some diseases are caused by what we eat. And I see it many times when people, they can't afford the high priced food. So they buy the cheap food. And many times you see that whole ground corn. I don't know what the difference is between, what we eat corn on the cob that you can feed to the dog and they don't get sick or anything, or the processed. I think the way it is processed, but like I said, I don't know how that is. And what I see many times is skin conditions, but many times I see very red ears, infected ears, and they shake their head. And when I look at it, it's like, what you feed them? Oh, so and so and so. I go on the computer and look up what the ingredients are. And it says, well, you better get some better dog food. And then we have our dog food. We sell, the regular dog food too. And then we have now this clinical nutrition. So yes, we tried it and I don't know how many people we gave it to and they all come back. It works.
What were the most important ingredients for you to have in your food?
Meat, animal protein, because dogs are meat eaters. And this is what I have against people that say, well, I make my own dog food now because I don't like what's on the store. What do you feed them? Chicken breast and steak? No, that does not have the nutrients in there that your dog needs. If you do it, you have to, you do the meat, you do some vegetables or whatever, sweet potatoes, sometimes you can put in there, but you have to add nutrients that he needs, which is vitamins and minerals.
So I love that you brought that up because I am a canine nutritionist and I do feed raw for a good portion of
Hmm.
my one dog because
Hmm.
he's allergic to storage mites. So anytime you open up a bag of dog food and then go to store it, it's
Oh,
contaminated. So
oh,
he has allergic reactions. It's terrible. He gets the swollen ears, the swollen belly, in his mouth, everything. It's terrible. So we switched over to raw. But when I feed raw, I work directly with a butcher. So I know where it comes from.
yeah,
I know how it's
yeah.
processed. We add vegetables. We add goat milk. We add probiotics. We add supplements. We add
Yes,
things that are
yes.
natural
Many
to
times,
him.
yeah, many
Yes.
times what I say, when a wild animal, a lion, a tiger, kills an animal, what does he eat first?
The organs.
The intestines,
Yeah.
yes, because there's half digested food in there, there's half digested plants. He cannot digest plants. He's a meat eater,
Yep.
but he needs these supplements. And that it comes from this half digested plants in the intestines. Looks terrible, and I'm glad I don't have to do it. But
No, I mean, that's, I
yeah,
think, another thing that people don't realize too is that when you give your dog vegetables, which a lot of people like to add vegetables to their
yeah,
kibbles, but you have to cook them
yes,
because they cannot get the nutrients from
no.
them if you don't cook
No.
them.
What happens when the dog doesn't feel good? He starts out eating grass just to make him puke.
Yep. Yeah. It's incredible how similar, as you said, it is for nutrition for humans and nutrition for dogs. There are a lot of things that we need that are the same, and there are things that are very different. Can you point to something that's very different that humans need that dogs don't?
Okay, humans are more like pigs. We are omnivores, that
Yeah.
we can eat everything. Dogs are carnivores,
Hmm.
and their intestine is half the length of ours. And that's why they need these half digested nutrients so they can use them. Otherwise, they just boom, go out the back door and it's gone. Their stomachs are not developed with the enzymes in there are not developed to what you call it digest the plants. But the plants have nutrients, vitamins in there that they don't have. And like I said, many times you see these wild animals eat the intestines and they get too lazy to kill the next one. So then they start eating the meat and the bones. Now, they need the nutrients from plants, but they have to be denatured, you could
Yeah.
call it, in order to eat, to use.
I think one of the coolest things that I learned in the nutrition world with dogs was that dogs produce their own vitamin C. That was fascinating to me. They don't need as much of it. We don't have to supplement of as much of it. And dogs are just such unique creatures.
Now, every animal is unique in its own way.
Hmm.
Every way.
They really are.
Yes.
What's your favorite thing about working with animals?
That they are animals and they don't lie to you.
Yes.
We have five senses. Use them to make a diagnosis. Then you use, your instruments and your lab work in order to confirm your diagnosis. But at the same time, they will not tell you, "Oh, I'm hurting here," and no, it's the other way. It's simple to do a physical exam and find out. And what I see lately is a lot of these dogs that are rough with cruciate ligaments that are damaged. And you can see exactly how they walk. Yeah, they're
Mhm.
not, they have the gimp. And I go behind them and I compare both hind legs. And then right below the knee, there is this big bump where the cruciate ligament is attached that is then inflamed and it's sore.
Yeah. It's honestly so simple nutrition as a fix. It really is.
Yes.
And I think people get wrapped up in, especially with supplements, like add this, add this, add this. What can we do? How can we spend? How can we do this? People just make it too complicated and they're just filling their dog's body up with a lot of stuff that they
Yeah.
don't need. What is your recommendation for somebody who's thinking, I should maybe change my dog's diet? There's clearly a problem here.
Just look at the ingredients. The first thing has to be meat. I don't like meat byproducts or meat meal because I don't know what happened to it. But if it's beef, if it is salmon, if it's chicken, it is that. And that's what they need. Then look at the other things that is, all the nutrients that are supposed to go with it. But the first thing has to be meat in my philosophy.
Yeah.
And, like I said, the prescription diets that are supposed to help for certain conditions, they don't have medicine in there. So that's why we have the clinical nutrition now with the same ingredients. But when you claim that it does help against certain things, FDA calls it prescription.
My biggest problem with a lot of dog food companies is a lot of it's marketing and it's misleading and people just don't understand.
I know there's some of the dog food, it says chicken flavored. And you look at the ingredients and a whole 100% corn. And I feed it to my emu. We rescued an emu about 12 years ago. There was a gentleman far away down south who had bird fancier. He was 75, he died, and nobody wanted to take care of the animals that he had. So they asked us if we would take some. So we got emus, we got peacocks, we got turkeys, just everything. Like I said, if you let an animal teach you what they do. We rescued emus way before that when they were there. And I found out that if you stand up straight like this, that is scared. That means there's danger. And when you bend over, everything is safe. And time, like I said, I'm full of stories. I
Oh,
hope you don't mind.
tell me.
Okay.
No, please.
The people, there was an emu that was loose, and they were chasing it for 3 weeks.
Oh.
And we had emus, and Charles was a football player. And I told him, bring the football players here. If they can catch the emu, they can catch anybody with the ball. They never did.
Oh,
But,
no.
but anyway, here they chased that emu. So finally they call, hey, Doc, can you help me catch that emu? It is along the highway on the inside of the fence. An animal control officer is there. And he said, what do you want me to do? He says, nothing. And I had a dog leash. And so I'm walking up to the emu, and I'm about 15 feet away. And I bent over, and I could see that emu just completely relaxed. Okay, everything is fine. I walked up to the emu. I put the dog leash over him, all bent over, and I brought him to the car. And the guy looks at me, you asshole. See, that's the thing. The animals taught me their way of life. And that's how I caught them. And it was the same thing when we had to pick these two up. They were standing straight up like that in the corner of the little yard that they were in. And everybody said, what do you want me to do? I said, nothing. I just walked up to them, bent over, and I just guided them into the trailer and brought them home. And I love to work with animals like this when I try to understand them. The more I work with animals, the smarter they are getting. I say it all the time. And it's amazingly what they can tell you.
They can.
And I love it.
That's such an incredible story. And I feel the same way about animals. If we could listen better, if we would pay attention and be a little bit more curious, body language, dog body language is something that I teach because it's not taught. I have an entire web page about it because if people would slow down, dogs don't snap out of nowhere. There's an escalation.
Stories.
Yes, go for it.
This lady is sitting in an exam room. She has a pit bull between her legs. I open the door and he comes at me. Woo! And I look at her and says, can you hang on to him when I vaccinate him? No, I'm afraid of him. What? How can you be afraid of your own dog? I says, sorry, go bring your husband. A week later, he comes with the dog, the wife and 2 kids. He puts the dog on the table. I vaccinate. The dog licks my face, wags its tail. Is as crazy as a loon, just loving me. She was afraid, and the dog knew it, so I was the danger. Just recently, the dog has a German Shepherd, and he has to put a muzzle on him because it's barking all the time. And I don't know, I had to do some little surgery on him. So, I took him away, and the dog suddenly is away from the owner, comes up to me and says, oh my gosh, pet me. And just puts his head there and just looks at me. And the owner makes the dog the way he is. And that dog just loved everybody once he was away from the owner.
Well, and animals in general just have such a good judge of character. I always say, if my dog doesn't like you, then I probably don't either.
No, the same thing is, if you're looking for a dog like at an animal shelter, don't pick the dog you like, let the dog pick you.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't make any difference what kind of mud it is. He's smart.
My last segment for you is something that I call answering the ask. And this is about a time when a animal of any kind asked you for something different that you hadn't previously tried or experienced in your career that made you come up with a different solution to their problem. Do you have a story for that?
Yes. Charles had a Great Dane, Athena, and she had bad hips, and like all these big dogs do. And I'm driving down the road and says, they inject the hips in people. Why don't they do it to Athena? Maybe it'll help. So she was down for a day and a half, couldn't get off the dog bed. So I go over there. I injected hips with cortisone, and I always put some antibiotics with them, most like a Genison. 5 hours later, she gets up and starts walking. How long did we have it after that, Charles? Quite a while. But like every 2-3 months, I had to inject the hips. So I started doing it to other big dogs. And I told the people, I says, listen, why not try it? And it worked. And then they came out with Librela. So I quit injecting hips. But see, that's the thing. I'm always thinking about how can we improve the life of animals by doing simple things. And this is why we came up with this clinical nutrition too. It is affordable. And so many times now, I have a magazine of the AVMA on my desk where young veterinarians that are helped through school by corporations now have to work for the corporation and get burned out because the price is too high to save a dog that can be saved, and they have to put it down. When I was in college, the first thing they told us was, first thing, do no harm, and doing nothing is doing harm. And when an animal can be helped, but they can't afford it, and you put it down, that's not fair on the animal. If you can't sell them a Cadillac, sell them a Ford. Do something.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he won't.
No, they won't. And it's sad.
Yes.
It is really, really
Yes.
sad. The pet culture sometimes is pretty devastating.
Yeah.
It's pretty devastating. What would you like to leave our audience with today? Any message? It doesn't have to be related to animals in any way.
Yes. I want every kid to grow up with animals, especially before they're a year old, because when they crawl on the floor with animals, antigens from the animal produces antibodies, and the allergies are reduced by 40% later in life. That's a
Wow.
medical fact. I didn't come up with that.
Your dog isn't as complicated as they feel sometimes. They're not trying to confuse you. They're not working against you. They're responding to what they're experiencing. And somewhere along the way, we've learned to look outside of that instead of starting right there. Not because you've done anything wrong, but because that's what we've been taught to trust. If dog food labels feel confusing or you're wondering what actually matters, the Dog Food Label Decoder Quiz will help you understand what to look for and where to start. The link is in the episode description. So be kind, spread joy, and remember, sometimes the answer isn't more information, it's just about paying closer attention.